Welcome back to my channel. I am your favorite single mother of 3, Bougie Vintage, and today's video is a story time. Members, you guys are getting the tea first, and this is the first installment of the breakdown of my marriage. First of all, shout out to all the members, whether you're a bougie member or the bougiest member. I am sending you so much love, so much blessings. You guys, there's so many of you. And I'm actually just so happy and humbled that you guys have joined. If you want to join the membership and get cute badges and get to use my cute little emojis, then I will have the link in the description box below for you to join the membership, and it'll also be pinned in the comment section. So as you see by the title of this video, I am finally addressing the scandal of all scandals. The cheating scandal that happened 2 years ago. Am I okay? Like, who's smiling talking about being cheated on? Okay. Where's my fan? It's so hot. Like, today is hot as balls outside. I need to uncover my AC and get the AC blowing. So I'm going to take you guys back to 2 years ago and give you a breakdown of what happened and why it happened, essentially. So in 2017, I got pregnant with my first baby, and she was born in 2018. About 6 or 7 months after, I then got pregnant with my second baby. So after the second baby, things were fine at first, and I can't even really say when I noticed that there was a change in the relationship. But as my soon-to-be ex-husband was getting promoted in his career and I guess sort of finding himself, thanks to me. Once he started to do that, it kind of started to put a strain on our home life.
Just for reference, when I found out that I was pregnant with Salem, that is when he got a job. So prior to having a job, he was on disability because obviously he was shot in the leg. So the entire time that I was working on YouTube and making big dollars, he was on disability. So because we were having a child and he had just finished school, literally the same day we found out we were pregnant, my mom helped him with his resume and he got his job the same day. After working at that first job for a few months, he then got to go to his new job, which is the job that allowed him to make friends, be social, blah, blah, blah.
The reason for that was because my husband was spending way too much time at work. Like, after he was done his shift, he would not really be coming home. And then when he was home, he was not the most pleasant. 2 years ago, when I first noticed it, I was taken aback by it, of course, because we just had 2 kids. We were married. Like, what's going on, you know? I was telling my soon-to-be ex-husband then that, you know, he's not obligated to stay with us. He's not obligated to stay in the home with us if it's not where he wants to be, you know? And so I had stated that to him, and if we would get to arguing, I would be like, you can leave. Bye. See you never. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, I got too much going on. I am not trying to be arguing all the time. Like, if you're not going to be present, there's no point. Like, you know, anytime we would argue, I would say that. I would be like, you can go. Like, there's nobody's holding a gun to your head. You're not being held here against your own will. It's not a hostage situation. If you don't want to be a father and a husband, I'm letting you know you can go. But of course, he stated that that was not the case. Now, the reason, like I said, that I was saying that was because if he finished work at, like, I don't know, 5 o'clock, he wouldn't come home after his shift. He would stay at work and drink and then come home whenever he felt like it. But, like, that meant that the kids weren't seeing him, I wasn't seeing him, and there was just, like, a distance being created between us. And I just also felt like if you don't want to come home to your family after your long, hard day at work and spend time with your family, like, what are we doing? And so there was a lot of friction there before the actual cheating scandal took place. So that was basically what was going on as background noise in the relationship. His energy was as though he did not want to be a part of the family, or with me, I just didn't see that. I didn't see him being an active dad, an active husband. I was hurt by it, but I was also going to allow him to take a step back and go do his own thing because it was too much for me at that time. 2 years ago. So, like I said, once I told him that, and he told me, that's not what he wants. He wants his family. He wants to be with his family. He loves me. He loves our kids. He wants to be actively in our lives. I was allowing him the chance to show us that. Of course, the behavior did not change. His mouth was saying one thing. His actions were saying something completely different. I just noticed that he was like really irresponsible where the family was concerned, and like the world just revolved around him. And so again, I brought it up and they said, you can go. Like, I don't want to keep doing this. Are we going to get a divorce? Like, what do you want to do? The answer was no. Fast forward to January. This was happening right before the pandemic. So at the end of 2019, that's when a lot of our friction was happening. And then because of it, in like October, when I posted that Take Heed video, there was a lot going on. And so God was showing me a lot of different things. And my spiritual journey had started. And so that obviously was another way that there was space being put between us because I was changing, I was evolving, and he was not comfortable with that. So a big part of my spiritual journey, why it started, was because my soon-to-be ex-husband was not around, and I had to find some way to occupy my time and not think about what he was doing, where he was, like what time he's going to be home. He would tell me he's on his way home, and then like hours is passing and he's not home. And then he comes home drunk. Obviously that's frustrating. So I just started reading my Bible and stuff and like spending time with God, because that's the only person I had. It was my mom, my kids, and God, and that's all I had. And so my spiritual journey essentially started because there was a wedge created between myself and my husband. So as my spiritual journey is going on and there's lots of friction between us, in January, his workplace wanted to send him to Vancouver for the opening of another restaurant over there. And so I was like, please go. Please go. He came to talk to me about it, like to ask if I was okay with it or whatever. And I was like, absolutely. I think that we need the space. I think that we need, And so I was like, yeah, like let's do that. Like, go there, because he was going to be gone for like a month. And so that's exactly what happened. So January, so right before the pandemic, January 2020, my ex-husband goes to Vancouver to open up a new restaurant. He's there for just over a month. He had left the day after Salem's second birthday, and he wasn't due back until like mid-February. So he leaves for Vancouver, and while he was in Vancouver, there was a slight time difference. But when he was in Vancouver, he wasn't really checking on us enough. We weren't talking every single day, which I didn't think was okay, because we have kids. But it was whatever. And basically what happened was, while we were here in Ontario and he was over there in Vancouver working, I adjusted to being a single mom at that time. And I enjoyed it. And it was like so much peace in my house, and it was beautiful, and me and the kids were fine. And it was just at that time Salem and Belle, of course. I wasn't actually looking forward to his return. I was like, can you stay in Vancouver a little longer? So he ends up coming back in February, so again right before the pandemic. Before he came back, we had actually discussed what our relationship was going to look like once he returned. I was saying like what needs to happen, because we've had some time apart, and there's so many changes that needed to happen, and we had to both be willing to make those changes. I was, of course, very willing because my marriage was important to me. I can't say that they were important, though the things that were important to me though were important to him as well. I can't say that. Obviously, if they were, we would have been working on the marriage. So in February, he comes back. After having this discussion, we lay out like what our weeks are gonna look like, days are gonna look like. And when he comes back, it was a little underwhelming for him, I think. He wanted us to be like jumping for joy for his return, but I didn't do that. I remember when he came back from Vancouver, it was kind of just like, hey, like awkward almost. And it shouldn't have been, it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't be like sad that your partner's back. So he came back, and I didn't greet him with like a big hug and a kiss and a huge meal because I really wasn't looking forward to his return at that time 2 years ago. So then the kids were also overwhelmed, I guess. So Belle, at the time, she was really small. She wasn't even one yet. And she actually would not go to him. She had to warm up to him. And a part of that is because he wasn't really calling while he was there, right? So like FaceTime. So they spoke to him only a few times while he was gone for a whole entire month. And then when he came back, she was kind of distant. And Salem, of course, ran to him or whatever and greeted him. She was like super overwhelmed to see her dad again after not seeing him, touching him, whatever, for a whole month. So like she was like freaking out. And this was the first time that we saw that her attachment to him is a little problematic, because later that evening, we all went up to bed and Salem had a panic attack for the first time. She was 2 and she was literally freaking out, crying. And I realized it was because she must have felt some sort of abandonment because he had to go to work for a month and he came back, and it was just a lot of emotion for her. It was scary. And actually at the time I was going to film a video called I Lived for a Single Mom for 1 month. And so I wrote out all the things that happened, and I was going to talk about how important it is to have a 2-parent household. Go figure. And I never ended up filming that video, but I still have the notes in my phone from 2 years ago when that happened. Anyway, February, it's the day I think after he got back home, and he wanted to stop in at work because he knew that if he went to work, the people that he hadn't seen for a month would greet him the way he wanted me to greet him. But the people that are at work are not treated how I was treated at home. So like, of course they're gonna be happy to see you. You know what I mean? So he likes that kind of praise per se. So we drove to his work and he stopped inside and everybody was all, oh my God, yeah. So he was all happy. That made him, it stroked his ego basically. Like he was happy to go to work and be welcome home with open arms. And of course that was also my job, but I couldn't do it because of everything that I had been feeling prior to him even leaving. And there was no efforts or changes while he was gone, of course. And then I just wasn't looking forward to him coming back. So the relationship had already been strained. However, I didn't feel like it was the end of our relationship 2 years ago, not at that point. I did, however, feel like we needed some kind of counseling. I feel like we just had kids. A lot has changed in 2 years. We had 2 kids in 2 years, like back to back. So I knew that there was a lot of things that needed to be worked on in the relationship, and I was willing to do that. And it was important that we did that because we did have a family and we chose to have a family. Speaking on that, I actually want to go back because I'm the type of person that was okay with never having kids. And so before we had kids, we were together for almost 7 years, I think, before we popped out the first baby. And so like I was completely okay with never having kids, but based on the conversations that we had surrounding kids, surrounding both of our upbringings and what we wanted to give to our kids, it felt safe to do so. And that's why we had our children. If we didn't have those conversations, and if I didn't feel secure in what my ex-husband said he would deliver as a parent, as a father, as a husband, then I wouldn't have gone forward with having kids with him. But at the same time, when red flags were being raised, I thought they were pink. So I just, and then now we're here. So anyway, back into the story. So it's February, he comes back from work and basically back on the same BS. So the arguments basically start up again because he's going to work, not coming home after his shift, he's drinking every day, he's not seeing his family, he's not seeing his kids, he's neglecting his home life. There was no work-life balance there. And this does not end. When we get into what happened more recently, it's going to be the same thing, but worse. So it's February and we are arguing. Most of the arguments had to do with him being irresponsible irresponsible or him neglecting the family. Like, that's all the arguments were really about. They were nothing more, nothing less. It was just that. And when I would press the issue, I'm being called a nag, I'm being told I'm this, I'm that, and it's just, there was no resolve. It was just going around in a circle. And so I wanted to do counseling, and of course he didn't think that it was necessary, but blah blah blah. The relationship at that point was pretty much very up and down, and I don't hold on to things, so I can't even, I would have to go back and like look at old text messages to tell you guys like what exactly was happening in March, because the only thing that I noticed was maybe about a week or two before everything blew up in smoke is when I started to notice there were actual physical changes now. So on top of all the foolishness, a big part of the problem was that if he's not home because he's gone all day to work, remember please that I was working from home. It's not like I'm just a stay-at-home mom, right? So he's working, I'm working, I am carrying the bulk of the burden because I was making more money than him. And so I was paying for more things than he was. So it's not like he was going to work and he paid all the bills and he's man the house and all this stuff. It wasn't like that, you know? There wasn't an equal share of responsibilities. And so I'm taking care of home. Obviously I have my mom there helping me, but like we're taking care of home. He's going to work. He's making his little money. He's bringing it home. And actually, at that time, I had decided that he was going to pay for everything and I was going to save all of the money that I was making so that we could have a down payment for a house faster. And it was working. And so I'm saving all this money for the down payment for our home. That meant that I had to sacrifice. That meant that I could no longer buy anything that I wanted, because now it wasn't about me, it was about my children. It was about my family. And I was putting everybody in front of myself. I knew what I wanted to give my kids. I knew what I wanted to have for myself, and that was a house. I wanted to buy a house. Why am I buying Gucci bags and Louis Vuitton if I'm renting still? I'm putting it in somebody else's closet. I need to be able to build my own closet. So I put all that stuff aside. I stopped shopping completely. I stopped, shopping when I was bored, because that's one of the biggest things I did. I stopped doing that and I started saving all my money, and I'm saving, and I have so much money in my bank account. And so at the same time, he had wanted to sleeve his arm because he's insecure about the way his tattoos are placed on his arm, because they're just randomly placed. They weren't a natural sleeve. And so he wanted to sleeve his arm. And so he was asking me to borrow $2,000. He was asking me to take the money out of the house money that I was saving. I said, I will help you pay for your sleeve, not a problem, but like not right now. And because I wasn't giving him the money, he was being a jerk to me. He was belittling me. He was being rude to me because I wasn't giving him what he wanted. But I'm like, I'm not buying what I want right now. Like, why would I give you $2,000 for you to sleeve your arm because you're insecure about your tattoos? Like, they don't give a damn at work. And he's trying to tell me they care. They do care. How do they care? He's been promoted so many times since working there. They don't care about how his tattoos look. He feels like it looks unprofessional. It's in his head that he thinks that his tattoos are not appropriate. He wants to have a certain look, and he wants maximum return on like zero investment, which is not fair. So he was basically upset with me because I wouldn't give him the money. He was asking me to borrow the money. Then on top of that, it was his friend's birthday and they were going to Montreal, and he was supposed to pay the bills that month. This is actually slightly before. So at that time, he would pay all the bills and I would pay the rent. And so the bills were obviously cheaper than the rent. And so he's always just e-transfers me the money. And so it's his friend's birthday. It's at the end of the month and he's going to Montreal. I had no idea that he was going to Montreal without paying the bills. He goes to Montreal. He doesn't pay the bills. He buys a Comme des Garçons sweater, okay? And you could Google it while he's in Montreal. And then I have to pay not only the bills, but also the rent by myself. And we have 2 children. So as you can see, I'm being taken advantage of because I have more money, but that's some bull. Because at the end of the day, I couldn't just choose to not pay the rent. We'd be homeless. I couldn't just choose to not pay the bills because they were in my name. So obviously that is problematic and that was not okay. And then you're buying a sweater from Comme des Garçons when you're supposed to be going to Zara to buy a little $60 shirt. That's a problem. The other problem was when he came home from Montreal after partying away our not rent money, our electric bill money and gas money, whatever. He hid the sweater because he didn't want me to see it. And that was just another one of his little deceptive things. So obviously there's now financial issues. There are neglect issues, and then there's somebody that needs an attitude adjustment, and no matter what I say, no matter what I do, the attitude is not being adjusted. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't work with this. You're not giving me anything to work with. This is not fair to me. It's not fair to our kids. What the hell? So obviously I'm frustrated, and so we're arguing about a lot of things. And I noticed that if I made less money and he couldn't brag to whoever he was bragging to about my income, which was something that he did a lot. If he couldn't brag about my money, which he couldn't because my YouTube started to take a hit, as we have seen. Not anymore! Thank you, Jesus! My YouTube started to take a hit. I stopped doing Adam and Eve. And so I actually, at the time that I stopped doing Adam and Eve, my YouTube was still fine. To me, Adam and Eve was a second job, but he was so mad that I stopped doing Adam and Eve. And I was like, that's like not even fair because that is a second job. That's a second job. I don't have to do Adam and Eve. Sure, the money is good, but I don't feel like doing it anymore. I don't feel like it's aligned with who I am as a person anymore. And it's just not something I want to do. And as my husband, I felt like he should have respected that and understood that. And I made so much money from Adam and Eve and saved it for the house. So like, what is the problem? Who cares if I'm not doing it anymore? You don't have two jobs. You're running off to freaking Montreal and buying Comme des Garçons sweaters and not paying the utilities, and I have to pay them, and I also have to fill the fridge and all these things. Like, so why do you get to be mad at me that I don't want to work two jobs? You only work one job. Anyway, so all these things are coming up in the marriage, and it's becoming an issue, and we're arguing all the time, and blah, 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 blah. Again, it's like, you can go. I'm good on you. We could just co-parent. Like, it's probably better if we do that. But it was no, no, no. I'm asking this man about a divorce. No, no, no. And I'm not asking because I'm trying to get a rise out of you. I'm genuinely asking, do you want to get divorced? Because you're not treating me like you want to be married. You're not treating the kids like you want to be their dad. Like I had said on more than one occasion, I feel like they're your stepchildren. Like you treat them like they're your stepchildren. That's what I said. And no changes. So fast forward to March, and like 2 weeks before the incident, I am noticing changes physically. And so he doesn't really want to kiss me. Like I can't really touch him. He's not touching me. And I'm like, yeah, that is in line with something very, very wrong.
Also, around the same time, it must have been his day off, and I hadn't seen him from like the day before. And when I finally am seeing him the next day, I noticed he had gone to the barber. And I was like, you went to the barber? It was the weirdest thing ever. And the reason why it's weird is because I always knew when he had a barber appointment, but it was as though he went to the barber during work hours, went back to work because he wanted to look good for whoever he was cheating with.
So I ask, straight up and plain, is there someone else? And he's like, babe. And I'm like, so what's the problem? Like, why wouldn't you kiss me? I don't get it. Like, what? Just whatever. I brush it off and I figure, okay, tensions are pretty thick between us. But never in my mind did I think that he was gonna step out at me, you know? So fast forward again, we're still in March, and it's the, I think, 14th or the 13th of March. And I finished watching Stephanie Ike on 1LA, and I prayed and I went to sleep. And what I said in my prayer to God was, God, reveal your heart to me. All I said. I didn't say, Our Father who art in heaven. I didn't say, the Lord is my shepherd. All I said was, God, please reveal your heart to me. Amen. I was out like a light. I slept. While I was sleeping, I get a dream. And the dream does not sit well with me. So the dream that I had was I saw my ex-husband, husband at the time, of course, talking to some girl, and from what I remember in the dream, he was showing her something on his phone or something like that. And in the dream, she says to him, like, oh, my family wouldn't approve of me talking to you and all this stuff. Obviously, because he was married with children. Why would her family approve of him talking, or approve of her talking to him? Like, she basically was saying, like, their situation has to be hush-hush because what they're doing is wrong. I had never in my life had a dream like this before. Actually, that's a lie. In December, I did have a dream about witches, which I never dreamt about witches before. They were plotting against me, and me and my husband were sitting there, and this black witch figure grabbed hold of my wrist, and I was like beating it off, and I was rebuking it in the dream, but it was trying to come between me and my husband at the time. And that was December 26th, I think, of the year before. And so I prayed that away. And actually, when I had that dream, I had actually texted him something funny and basically saying, like, nobody can come between us or some foolishness like that. Like, I said something about his work. Anyway, so that was back in December, but didn't even think anything of it. Anyway, fast forward back to this dream. So that's what the girl says to him in the dream. But the girl had a very distinct look. She had blonde hair with a side ponytail, and I don't know, just the level. When I woke up from the dream, I was extremely uncomfortable with the dream. It didn't sit well with me, and I felt like I needed to get my investigation discovery on, and so that's what I did. I started looking on his Instagram at who he was following. I was in his DMs. I was just looking to see what I could find. And so I come across this page, and there's this girl that's from here. And I'm looking on her page, and my heart stops because she has blonde hair with a side ponytail in one of her pictures on her timeline, and he's following her. And I'm like, I had never seen this girl in my life. But actually, I have seen this girl in my life because I think I partied with her in Montreal. But that's neither here nor there. So I end up DMing her from my account and telling her about the dream, but I didn't tell her that it was my husband in the dream. I just told her there was a man, blah, 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 blah. And so I wasn't sure if this was anybody of importance, but this was the person I saw in my dream, or at least the same hairstyle. And so it caught me off guard. And so I messaged her, she messaged me back. We spoke for a little bit, and that was the end of that. So my husband ended up coming home that night after work, and I decided to grab his phone and snoop. So now I'm snooping through his email, and I see a reservation for an Airbnb. Now my heart stops again. So at this point, it's like after 12 o'clock. So we're at on the 15th. I have nail school on Tuesday, which was going to be the same day that he's supposed to go to the Airbnb. So I'm doing my investigations, and I'm like thinking like, okay, there's been a lot of tension between us. Maybe he's booking this Airbnb. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt like a stupid woman, okay? Maybe he booked the Airbnb because, you know, the house is noisy all the time. He just needs to get away. Like, I was really trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but like, it wasn't sitting right with me. I knew something was not right, so I just kept investigating. I saw that the Airbnb was booked for the 17th of March. And so once I saw that, the following day, I started kind of asking him like, oh, what are your St. Patrick's Day plans? Do you have any St. Patrick's Day plans? Like, blah, blah, blah. He's telling me no. He's not mentioning the Airbnb. So at this point, I know something is very, very wrong. Like, why would you book an Airbnb, not say anything? You're cheating for sure. But I needed the proof. I needed it to be hard evidence. So ironically, he's gone to work that day. This is the day before Airbnb. He's gone to work, and he gets a DM from the girl. And when I go to the page and I look at her pictures, I see that he's been commenting on her pictures. And so I also had remembered seeing a text in his phone from just one single letter he had her saved as, which was the first letter of her name. He saved her as G. So when I saw that the message came through on Instagram, and it was a stupid video that I guess she thought he would find funny, so she sent it to him. And when I saw that she's DMing him on Instagram and he has her saved in the phone as G, I put two and two together and figured, okay, so this is somebody I should be paying attention to. So me and him get to arguing later on in the day because once again, he had stayed out late. So this is the 16th of March. He'd stayed out late. He's at work. He's not answering his phone. And I literally had to tell him that I have an emergency before he would respond. But that's because he was hanging out at work with the girl. And so I'm blinging his phone down and he's not answering. I tell him there's an emergency and all of a sudden he can answer. So we get to arguing back and forth. He's being very disrespectful in the text messages. I'm like accusing him of cheating. I said, I already know you're cheating with one of them bitches from work or whatever. And he denies it. Of course, he denies it. But he also insults me in the process. He tried to call me jobless. I said something about the girls at his work. And he said to me, at least those girls have jobs. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Are you paying the bills yourself? Aren't I the one that had to cover your ass? Aren't I the one that's saving stacks on stacks on stacks to buy a home? How much money do you have in your bank account? Because if we play big bank takes little bank, who's gonna win? Me or you? So who are we calling jobless? Like, he was really being like a narcissist at that time, right? And so we're arguing back and forth, and when he said it to me, I'm like, yeah, he's definitely cheating. So at that point, I don't even tell him I know about the Airbnb because I'm not blowing my cover. My actual plans were to pop up at the Airbnb because I saw the address in the freaking email. So I knew where the Airbnb was, and my plan was to pop up at the Airbnb and catch him with the person, but it didn't go down like that. So that's why I never mentioned the Airbnb while we were arguing on text that night. Anyway, he comes home pissed drunk. He is so drunk and his phone pretty much dies. So he's downstairs on the couch now. We're arguing, and I guess I was texting his phone so much that his phone ended up dying and he didn't get to delete the text messages from the hussy before I could get to his phone. So he's on the couch downstairs sleeping, and I'm in my room in the pitch black. I decide I'm gonna go get some water. I go to the fridge, and as I'm walking back from the fridge, I see like a light in my house kind of glare off of something rectangular, and so I go over to it and it's his phone, and so he doesn't move, so I touch it and I realize it's dead. So I go back upstairs and I'm sitting there for a while, like at least 20 minutes, contemplating whether or not I'm gonna go back downstairs, because there's a little angel on my shoulder telling me, get your charger and go plug that phone in. And I'm like trying to dismiss it and like contemplating, should I go, should I not go? And then I decide I'm going to go. So I go, I pick up the phone, I bring my charger into the bathroom, I have my phone with me as well, I plug the phone in, and the little Apple logo shows up not too long after that. I open the text messages, and the last message I saw from the name G was, do you understand? Now, I was like curious about what the frig is gonna be on the rest of the messages, because why is this person asking him, does he understand? It just gave me a bad vibe, obviously. So I open the messages, I scroll to the top, and I start reading, and I get like sick to my stomach. I pretty much black out at this point. But I record it, of course, and then I slap his phone onto his chest. I may or may not have said some things that I should not have said. Don't remember. Because I was blacked out. And I definitely was having a moment of insanity. So we get to arguing. I go upstairs and I post the messages that I recorded onto his Instagram with a caption along with it. And I also changed the password to his Instagram so that he couldn't go on and delete the post. So he's trying to get into his Instagram and he's yelling at me and he's carrying on crazy. And I guess at this point, people are messaging her or her Instagram's blowing up. So that's kind of how he found out that I had posted to his Instagram, because people are blowing up his phone telling him that there's a post on his Instagram. So he tries to go on the Instagram, he can't get on the Instagram, and he's trying to like get his password changed back, and he's going crazy. At this point, he then gets extremely volatile and starts punching holes in my drywall. And obviously you guys heard him threatening me. He said, if anybody from my work saw that post, I am going to break your effing jaw. And if he gets fired from his job tomorrow, I better make sure that I call the police before he gets home, because he's gonna break my effing jaw. And so I was recording him while he was screaming at me, and I then posted that to my personal Instagram, and I was like, this was in front of my children. And then after that, I took the kids and I went to my mother's house because she had lived right across the street. And so it was a hard night. A hard night. It was new. You know, this was not something I was used to. He had never punched drywall before. He had never threatened me like that before. And he sounded pretty serious. And so I was like, I'm not staying here. So I took the kids, I left, and then I was on Instagram Live. As you guys know, I'm super duper private. So like, this wasn't normal that I was showcasing this, but I literally was not in the right mind state from before this even happened, because he had already been belittling me, talking down to me, you know, being an asshole to me. And when I'm telling him he can go, he's telling me he doesn't want to go. And so I'm like confused. There's a lot of different emotions there. And so I'm on Instagram Live, and he's interrupting my Instagram Live and telling me we have kids and all this stuff. I'm like, shut up. You weren't thinking about these kids when you were telling this girl you're going to eat her coochie. Like, I don't care. Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So you weren't thinking about the kids at that point. Anyway, that happened. The day after everything, I removed the post. People are making videos about it online. They're taking my content from Instagram and using it in their videos, and I was not okay with that because it was my story. I am literally a YouTuber that tells stories online, and it was my own stuff. Like, I am not a celebrity, so I didn't feel like people should be able to be taking that stuff and and it was hurtful, and I have kids and all that stuff, and like, it just wasn't something that I really wanted online. And so I had things removed offline, of course, for copyright, and that was that. And the girl that was actually doing the bulk of the stuff was harassing me on Snapchat and making fake accounts and like literally harassing me and bullying me on Snapchat, on YouTube, anywhere that she could get a message through to me, she would do it. Even sending a message to my child's Instagram, like DMs, like what? It was crazy. And so like, people like that are really mentally ill and need help. And so I wasn't really trying to take her on, because it's just like, I don't have time for that. I'm going through something real here. I don't need it to be, I should never have posted it. And I understood that after the fact, but I had a moment of insanity. So fast forward, 3 days go by. And at the 3-day mark, I had made peace with everything. And I said, you know, I'm good. I just want to co-parent. Let's move on. You can message the girl, maybe, and still get with her. Like, literally, I have a text message that detailed all this stuff and said, like, I just want what's best for the kids, and like, I'm not into the BS. I just want to move on with my life and with my children. Like, you know, we could just do this whole thing amicably. When I sent that message, he then messaged me back and told me some baloney. And of course I fell for it. But like, I think because I was so, I almost want to say desperate to give my kids 2 parents in their home. I want to grow old with somebody I think those things, the fairy tale of it was really what made me even consider forgiving him. And also just because of my spiritual journey as well, I was like, is this a thing where I'm supposed to forgive him and we as a team show people like how to get past infidelity in a marriage. Like I wasn't sure what it was, but then when you look at the bigger scope of things, you realize it wasn't just infidelity. I was dealing with a whole narcissist. So it was never going to work. But that's neither here nor there. 3 days after the incident, like I said, I sent him this message basically like trying to end it, and he hits me back, which just pretty much threw a monkey wrench in my plans, because I had always been the person that said if somebody shows you who they are the first time, believe them. But a lot was on the line, so I wasn't taking my own advice, girl. I needed Botox at the time. Okay, I needed Botox, I needed liposuction, I needed a BBL, girl. I needed everything, but I wasn't getting it. So we end up basically like saying like neither one of us want to end the relationship. Like, let's work on it. And so at that point, I booked counseling sessions. We do not end up in the counseling sessions because once again, he sabotaged that. But like I had told him too, like, don't tell me that you want to do this and you're not willing to do the work to heal us, because we're going to end up back here later and I really don't want that. And so I had said to him, if you're staying with me because of the children, don't bother. We're going to end up here later. If you're staying with me because you think it's the right thing to do because we're married, do not bother, because we're going to end up back here later, maybe even worse. And so I gave him like these instructions, basically like telling him like, please know why you want to work it out with me before trying to work it out with me. And if you're not going to be willing to do the healing process, which would obviously include counseling.
Especially because one day when we were arguing, he tried to blame me for him cheating. And I immediately called out that gaslight, because I did not book no Airbnb. I did not tell you to cheat. I told you to leave if you did not want to be in the relationship. Then you can go and be with whoever you want to be with. You cannot blame me for cheating when I told you can leave and you told me you do not want to leave and you do not want a divorce. I'm not taking that burden on. I am not the reason you cheated. You are the reason you cheated. And the other side of that is when he had stated to me that he thought we were breaking up. So he was like, F it, and decided he was going to have an extramarital affair. But again, that was a gaslight, because in the other breath, you just told me that you didn't want to end the relationship. So what do you mean you thought we were breaking up, so you thought it was okay for you to start talking to or having sex with somebody else? Makes no sense.
Us finding healthy ways to communicate and like taking accountability and stuff like that. Like, if those are not things you can do, please just leave me alone. You know what I mean? But that is obviously the opposite of what he said. He said he was willing. And so I trusted that. I literally was giving him yet another chance to let him match that mouth with the actions, or match his actions with his mouth. So I knew a big part of the problem was that because he was never coming home when he was supposed to, because he wanted to party with his friends all the damn time, like every single day, like there was a lack of intimacy there. So of course we start having a lot of intimacy now, physical intimacy, but also just spending time together. Like we were doing a lot of like board games and stuff and just date nights, just trying to rebuild what we used to have, because things do change once you have kids and you have to make the time for the relationship after kids come into play. So that's what we started to do. And then like a month after that, so that happened like pretty soon after, like we started having a lot of sex. And then like 2 months later, I find out I'm pregnant, and then I am like, what the F? What is this? And so that is how we ended up with Nola. But if you guys watched the pregnancy video or pregnancy announcement for Nola, I talk about how hard that pregnancy was for me for the majority of it, because it was coming off the heels of an infidelity issue. It was coming off of just a horrible situation, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with that pregnancy because of how it was happening and when it was happening, and I just didn't feel like it was the time, because I didn't feel like we should introduce a new baby to the situation, especially if we're not through healing the situation. Like, I felt like if we were gonna have another baby, it should have been probably like now, like 2 years after the incident, and you know, if we're in a better place and we're healed and we decide, okay, let's go for one more because I originally wanted 4, that would be the most ideal situation. But obviously, God has his plans. I had mine, and mine were not the same as God's. And so that's just basically what happened. But I end up pregnant, and I am freaking out inside, like internally, externally. I am mad at myself for getting pregnant. I'm feeling so horrible because I'm just like, I don't want to bring a third child into this mess. You know what I mean? Like, even though at this point I'm thinking we're going to work on our marriage and we're going to be together anyway, so it's like whatever, but at the same time it's still just it was still really sore and stressful, and like we weren't necessarily in the best place to be bringing a third baby into the situation. Fast forward, I have the baby, and during the pregnancy and after the pregnancy, it was just the same stuff going on still and other stuff, but this video was just about this cheating scandal, so we're gonna get into that stuff like in future videos. That is pretty much what happened prior to the cheating scandal. Now, you might be wondering why I stayed after he cheated. I have a story time that I'm going to tell that is for members only because of, one, the nature of the story, but also because it's triggering, and it's something that happened to me. It's something that happened during this relationship, but it happened in 2014, and I only recently started sharing this story like with family and friends because I got to talk about it in therapy, and so it's another release for me, but it had a big impact on why I chose to stay after he cheated on me. So if you want to hear that story, unfortunately, you're gonna have to become a member. But what I can say about it is that we all make mistakes. That's pretty much it for this video, and I hope that me sharing these kinds of things is bringing healing to you guys. I hope that you guys can find the strength to leave the same way that I had to. It's not easy. I have 3 little ones now. Co-parenting has been a struggle. But what I can say is that I am very happy with my decision, and I wish it for everyone that needs it. If you need to get out of a abusive relationship, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, financial, whatever it is, if you need to get out of it, get out of it. I support you and I wish you well. I'm praying for you guys. I hope you guys are praying for me too. Sometimes it's really hard to recognize the signs, especially if you're not being physically touched. And so I was ignoring a lot of things. Stuff that I was putting up with was so beneath me, and I knew it, and my mom knew it, and everybody around me knew it, but I thought that I was dealing with somebody that was willing. I thought I was dealing with somebody that was normal, you know? So that's pretty much how my situation ended up getting dragged out 2 years later, and now in an even more horrible place. I just feel so free, and I feel so beautiful and happy, and I feel like I'm getting back into me, and I feel strong. I feel so many positive things, and like my YouTube is like My YouTube is like slowly coming back, and like we out here. We outside. Like, I'm so legit excited for this new chapter. So I love you all so much. In the comment section below, tell me about the time you was played like Boo Boo the Fool and decided to stay. What did this man do to you? Or what did this girl do to you? I love you so much, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.